Learner Pathway System, CSV file formats, and editing, including for required date format. On the Alberta Council on Admissions and Transfer ACAT website, you'll see copies of the blank CSV templates and file formats that are used in the Data Collection and Reporting, or DCaR system, to mass upload files into the catalog. Again, DCaR is illustrated here, and the catalog is illustrated here. In order to do so, you would open up these templates and you would see, for example, using the course sample here, that there would be a file format required, and it shows which are the mandatory fields in that file format. In this case, you see course ID, code, title, description, number, etc. You also see the character lengths or maximum field lengths that are allowed in the particular file. Each of the files, one for courses, one for agreements, and one for programs, all of which are illustrated here, do have different file format requirements or data requirements. The uploading of each file, however, operates exactly the same into the DCaR system as illustrated here when we import that data into the system. Now, when we're using these file formats, you can upload the particular use the template from the system to upload into DCaR. And again, we can get those right from the ACAT website as we just illustrated. And it comes with pre-populated headers that you need to keep the same. If you accidentally delete one of those headers or change it to something else, the file will error out when you go to enter it into the DCaR system, and you'll get a red error message and the data won't appear in the system below. So when you complete your file, similar to a sample shown here, it's important that all the header stays intact and that you upload that information from your system into the CSV file with all of the data rows present. Note that for those fields that are not mandatory, you may have some blank fields, but again, all of the mandatory fields need to be present. A common error that you may experience is related to date format and the editing of that. The required file format for all of the files that we just looked at for courses, programs, and transfer agreements is to go year, month, and then day. It may be common that you find that your system has an automatic default that reverts it to something that might look like this or a different format. In this case, this one is day, month, and then year. We would need to edit that before uploading into the system to save you from all of these records erroring out. This is a great common check to do just before you mass upload, and it's easy to do just to check the file itself. Even if there's thousands of records, I just highlight the entire columns from the top. I right-click on those. I click on Format Cells. I double-check before I go into my custom format that under Protection, it's not locked as it is here. If it's locked, I will find myself frustrated because I won't be able to change the formatting and I may wonder why. Unclick the lock, then go back to number, and now here I'm going to put in the correct formatting for year, 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 dash, month, dash, day. Note that there are dashes and not slashes because that's part of the file format that's needed in the system. I now can click OK, and note that all of those have been changed to the file format that's needed in the system. This is a common check or format lock that you might want to do on your files if that's helpful to you before you upload them, again to save them from erroring out. Some other common errors you may find are blanks in mandatory fields, such as delete record was one mandatory field. The options are yes or no for delete record. Almost always you will have a no in these fields. And again, they can't be blank because it's a mandatory field. The only time you would ever have yes in this particular field would be if you've accidentally put a record into the catalog that you wish to completely delete because it was put there in error. Other than that, you put no because what you're doing is either adding a new record or editing a current record. Now, other fields that are mandatory, such as institution ID, or course code or number, or course title, we also need to make sure there's no blanks. If you wish to do a simple filter for that, you could click on any of these columns. I'm going to click at the top always so I get the whole column. I can then go over to Sort and Filter. I could select a filter. Now the little arrow will appear there. I can click on it. I could unselect all, and I could click on the blanks and click OK. And now it'll just show me which ones I accidentally have no data in for a required field. Now, again, with that in mind, if I had hundreds or thousands of records, this would be very helpful. Since I only had a handful, I could probably do these manually, but it illustrates how you can do that for any of the columns using a basic filter. I can, in this case, I'm just going to undo that, and I'm going to re-click on Filter and remove that filter. If you wanted to check for blanks in all of your particular mandatory fields, you could do a sort. First, you would select everything in your particular file by using the top left-hand corner arrow to make sure that you don't miss any records. Then you could select a custom sort. You could choose all of the different columns you wanted included, and then you could select looking for a filter for blanks just in those particular columns, and they'd all be grouped together. That's a couple of different ways that you could search for things that are blanks, or that you could do a search on mandatory fields in your particular files. A couple of other common things that are also illustrated here could be things such as in the credit value, accidentally having a range of credits such as 3 to 6. It needs a single number. Or you may accidentally have NA in that column or in another column, which would error out because NA wouldn't work when you need an actual numeric value. In this case, look at 3 to 6. I would either just choose 3 or just choose 6, or I would put in a second row if I wanted both. One could be 3, one might be 6, for example, or other variables, but each one would need to be in a different record. I would change NA to a particular number. If there was no credits, I might just, as you see here, change it to 0 if that was my intention. This illustrates some of the common edits that may be helpful and application to the CSV file format that is present here, as well as especially editing that date format, which certainly can cause some grief if you haven't made sure that it meets the data standard before uploading your file.